Welcome back. With the upcoming South Carolina and Nevada primaries soon to be underway, it's time to present where the current slate of candidates fit into the crazy electable matrix. Let's start with the Democrats. Voters who support Hillary or Bernie may want to consider this. A government big enough to give you everything you want is strong enough to take everything you have. From our view, that puts Bernie and Hillary in the danger zone. Looking a bit more closely, we rated Bernie just a little bit more electable than Hillary in a general election because his simple message resonates. Our financial and political systems are rigged against the average American. Problem is, Bernie's chance of actually winning the nomination is slim. The Democratic Party conducts its nominating process in an undemocratic way, with superdelegates not obligated to support the candidate chosen by the voters. Consider where we are after 2 states have voted. Hillary won by the slimmest of margins in Iowa and got beat badly in New Hampshire by a 3-2 margin. Of the 68 delegates up for grabs in those 2 states, Hillary won only 32. That's less than half, yet she leads by a whopping 394 to 44 in the delegate count. Bernie makes a good point that the political system is rigged, that the establishment and the media run the show. But if pretending that free stuff doesn't cost anything, the best you could hope for by voting for Bernie is that Hillary gets indicted or some of the superdelegates in the upcoming months leaves Hillary and you end up with a brokered convention. Now let's talk about the 6 remaining Republican candidates. Ben Carson, he's the embodiment of the American dream, growing up poor in Detroit, earning a scholarship to Yale, and becoming a world-renowned surgeon. Yet despite his clear message, pedigree, and Washington outsider status, his campaign just hasn't generated enough interest, and we don't see him winning the nomination. Clearly, for now, Ben is in the no-vote zone. Jeb Bush. Jeb's probably the smartest of all the Bushes, but even with a good showing in South Carolina, he's highly unlikely to win the nomination, much less the election. That's why we have Jeb right here on the 5 electability axis. Call it Bush fatigue, or his inability to excite the electorate, or maybe there's no recovering from Donald painting him as weak and too much of an establishment candidate. Donald Trump. The federation of the fed up who feels betrayed by the establishment Republican orthodoxy that promises everything and delivers little have made this oddly tinted guy their mascot. We think Donald initially started off in the show-off zone, but in our opinion, his appeal to the culture of ridicule and his increasing demonstrations of immaturity are moving Donald from the show-off zone into the danger zone. Donald may continue to win upcoming primaries because he has tapped into the sentiment of a very angry electorate, an electorate fed up with rigged financial and political systems that preserve the status quo. Bottom line, a Trump versus Bernie or a Trump-Hillary cage match will force us to completely recalibrate the crazy scale. It'll be huge! Ted Cruz, the other anti-establishment candidate, possibly more hated by his own party than Donald. But without the backing of at least some of the party apparatus and his over-the-top conservatism, we don't see Ted becoming commander-in-chief. Still maybe electable, but Ted's on the crazy line. Now let's talk about the sane guys. Those are between the 5 and the 8, so they're reasonably not crazy most of the time. And they're below the crazy line, so they're still maybe electable. And that leaves Rubio and Kasich. Please clap. Really, Jeb? Let's start with John Kasich, a mature, respectable man with experience on the House Armed Services Committee and 6 years as chairman of the House Budget Committee before becoming governor of Ohio. He's a civil politician and a master debater. Please clap. Really, Jeb? He appears pragmatic, rather than a xenophobe with irrational policy propositions. He isn't dogmatic nor a demagogue, but his appeal to the federation of the fed up, he just needs to reignite that righteous anger he had early on. Marco Rubio. Yes, Christie wounded this bright first-term U.S. Senator, but Marco gave a good enough performance in the last debate, hopefully good enough to earn him a good finish in the upcoming South Carolina and Nevada primaries. Marco just might be the brightest, the most articulate, the most passionate, and perhaps the only candidate that still has a chance to appeal to the Federation of the Fed Up, and maybe has the best chance to defeat any Democratic opponent. Let's see how next week goes for Marco. Can he continue to build his Marco-mentum? Can he stay above the fray? Can he surge forward by showing the path to the White House is best achieved by attacking Bernie and Hillary's policies? And by the way, Marco, it's far easier to see a punch coming if you're not looking back over your shoulder at the last president. So look for our next update after the South Carolina and Nevada caucuses have concluded.